Very busy today. We'll tell you about the visitors visiting President Trump there. Let's start, though, with some beautiful, beautiful weather as we kick off the week. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide at the Pulse of NH. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of NH. And our poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of NH. We are learning this morning that it looks like a progressive Democrat is going to be challenging Chris Pappas in the U.S. Senate primary race. And do you think the questions in general, do you think more candidates are going to jump into the U.S. Senate race, both on the Republican and Democrat side? We asked that question up on X, J Dog, and I'm saying J Dog because I can't believe he's here. We'll come back to that in a moment. Busy day at the White House. Hope you had a good weekend. Jack, Heath, J Dog on the boards in our capital. Beautiful weather this week, right through the first part of the week. Gorgeous, as you've heard. European leaders, along with the Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky, on the way to going to be there. Going to be going into the White House today to meet with President Trump after the summit meeting he had in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday with Vladimir Putin. And we'll talk about some of this, whether it's going to be a real estate type concession the Ukrainians have to make. Putin talking about stories over the weekend that he has two regions, not just one, but two regions he's interested in to end the war. But what will Ukrainian agree to? And talk about a security agreement. The U.S. would backstop with Ukraine against future aggression or attacks because NATO is not really an option. We have a lot to talk about this morning. We just mentioned, hearing this first this morning, that a Democrat primary challenger to Chris Pappas. We'll be hearing from Michael Graham on that, New Hampshire Journal. Also, some of the other news talk as we get going, plenty to talk about. And Hurricane Aaron, not expected to make landfall on the eastern seaboard of the United States, but the storm's effects are going to be felt mid to late week, getting up towards the Carolinas, probably Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. But it's out in the ocean, but it will add to the strong rip currents and marine forecast, as well as high seas, especially at high tide. Could be a pretty good show as we get towards the end of the week on the New Hampshire and Maine seacoast. J Dog, I got to tell you, buddy, I am bummed out that you're here, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way, because I know you wanted to be at Wrigley in Chicago. Beautiful. You, like a lot of people over the weekend, had a nightmare trying to get out on your flight, so you put it off, and you're here. Your vacation's been what, postponed? uh, wow. I feel bad. How does that work with the tickets for at Wrigley, the baseball? You get refunds? Oh, you're gonna go there when you're there. Oh, okay. Okay. I was telling you before the show, J Dog. And by the way, I do want to mention Wednesday, we're going to be live at the Doubletree Hotel downtown Manchester doing the show. A very important blood drive, the Gail Singer Memorial Blood Drive, Wednesday morning. Manchester Mayor Jay Rouet will be on hand. Steven Singer. We kick that off. We're big sponsors of that blood drive at the Pulse of an H here. And it's the biggest 2-day blood drive in America. Downtown Manchester, Wednesday morning, or Wednesday and Thursday. I'm sorry, we'll be there Wednesday morning, 9 at noon. Very important. J Dog, I mentioned before the show, real quickly, before bringing our first contributors and experts this morning, got a packed show for you, so buckle up. Went to the Red Sox game Friday night with my smarter, prettier, better half and her design group out of Portsmouth. And I have to tell you, J Dog, they had a bus and all that, so we went down. I haven't been in a long time to in person after growing up north of the ballpark. I have not been down to a game in person in a long time. And I have to tell you, J Dog, don't talk about tariffs. Don't tell me we're having impact from fewer Canadian tourists, Governor Mills in Maine. Please, please. J Dog, it was packed. When I say it was packed, Friday night, in and around Fenway, all weekend, the series against the Marlins. But Friday night, around the ballpark, it was, and it was kind of cool. And I'm watching the warm ups. I'm going, we could finally get in there. I'm watching the warm up. I go, what are the, of course, this team. I mean, this team's exciting, the Red Sox, but they're wearing the green. Yeah. So I have to tell you, J Dog, outside the stadium, bus driver could hardly get in. And then we go in, I go, "What's the line around TD Garden?" There's a line around the garden before you even got yeah, WWE was there. Finally got over to their Yawkey Way and the Red Sox, and they let us off. We're going every concession area, every place you could get something cold to drink. We go into the game, packed, not an empty seat. No one left, J-Dog. They won Friday night in the bottom of the ninth. No one left. It was like till 11:30 out there Friday night, mobbed. Wow. I did see, by the way, Maine is setting tourism records up in Acadia. But Governor Mills can still talk about, "Oh, we've lost tourists." What's that, J-Dog? Mhm. Well, I know they you know what? I it's so sad. You only see a few signs with Gene or the name Yawkey up there because of all the political correctness. I'm like, "Oh my goodness." It's go back to the history, folks. Anyway. All right, let's just do a quick preview before we get some live reports out of DC. So one of the key things, well, more on that U.S. Senate race here in New Hampshire. Chris Pappas getting a progressive challenger, meaning more liberal. We'll talk about that. The key thing on Friday, other than I think, a successful meeting with Presidents Trump and Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, pretty significant. Those two even physically getting together, but there was no, if you notice, no big announcement of a ceasefire coming out of that. But there was talk that there was agreement if Zelensky, President Zelensky, can get a peace deal with Russia. In other words, President Trump saying he's teed this up as best he can, and now it's up to the Ukrainian leader to get a peace deal. It's interesting today, and I'll tell you what I think the optics or the reality are. All these European leaders coming with President Zelensky to the White House. These European leaders like Great Britain and different leaders in NATO. A bunch of European leaders, like about half dozen. I think the leader of Finland, a bunch of them coming. And I think that's a show that they are supporting the Ukrainian leader and that they're not going to encourage him or agree to a deal, especially if it's too much realignment of a map of the Ukraine. I'm getting a little more realistic. It shows you the complexity of trying to get a deal here done, whether or not they're going to get a deal. I'm not sure at this point, but I give President Trump credit, as most people should, by the way, with half a brain with oxygen flow, for trying to get a peace deal here and going to this extreme to meet with Putin and trying to get a deal and hammer out. I mean, one thing you can say, even if you don't like President Trump, politically speaking, or personally, or any which way, he does know how to get a deal done. And trying to get a deal done is a good thing. I mean, even Hillary Clinton said that on Friday. So, complexity, as I said for a long time now, like it or not, like it or not, like it or not, the war will end when Putin wants it to end, the Russian leader. They're the aggressor. They've paid a heavy price, both in troops and money. And it's been no war is good, and you still have the uncertainty in Gaza. But anytime you can try to broker the end of a war, I don't care. It just shows you the craziness of our politics today, that people can't even say it's a good thing that he's trying that hard to end the war and get it done. But it's not a slam dunk at this point. Markets, how are they reacting to all the above? Doug Tengden will be checking in a little bit. By the way, I noticed a couple stories over the weekend, because a lot of people have already, in some respects, unless you live there, moved on, maybe not. But speaking of Washington, D.C. and the European leaders coming, there's more talk. I mean, there's more action even overnight. I saw, trying to see how many arrests were made last night in D.C., including murder suspects, illegal guns on the street, gang members. So it's like they're getting up there. They're taking down more of the homeless camps that have sort of taken over parts of DC. So the cleanup continues, as do the politics. A lot going on, a lot of pieces to pay attention to, a lot of stuff that we are going to try to. I think there's another theme here that we're seeing with all the stuff happening in DC, all the stuff outside of New Hampshire. It's making things quite quiet here on the political front because here we are coming in towards the back half of August. We're not trying to rush it. Beautiful weather this week. As you go into Labor Day, and then you get into the fall, year before the midterms, finally more action in terms of a progressive Democrat. We're going to hear all about her in a moment. Heard here first this morning. Getting into the race on Wednesday to challenge Chris Pappas. There may be other candidates getting into the Senate, but still, interestingly enough, despite a very packed first congressional district, both Republicans and Democrats running. And of course, that's a seat that Chris Pappas is giving up to run for the Senate, U.S. Senate, the member of Congress in the first district giving that seat up. A bunch of Republicans, a bunch of Democrats running. Despite all that, and despite a lot of the issues locally, it's quiet and still no big Democrat, no statewide Democrat name yet out there running for governor. No big Democrat running for governor. Interesting, isn't that? Now, I'm not saying no doubt there will be, because it is an opportunity for someone who doesn't have any realistic chance of winning. Not presuming, but Kelly Ayotte obviously is going to be the Republican nominee for governor, running for a second term. But even if the Democrat doesn't even have a chance, and you know what, to win, it is a chance for a Democrat to run statewide and get known. But in Manchester, even though the mayor's race is this fall, ahead of it's off season, so it's this fall. Jay Rouet, until recently, didn't even have a Democrat challenger in the state's largest city. The Republican mayor, first term, he'll be joining us Wednesday at the Gail Singer Blood Drive. And it wasn't until a school board member at the 11th hour in Manchester jumped into that race as a Democrat. And up until he would have been like over 100, I think it was 150 years, he would have been the first mayoral candidate running for re-election in Manchester, New Hampshire without a challenger. But a Democrat did jump in at the end. So even though you're seeing more action in the U.S. Senate race, a lot of action in the first congressional district, still no Democrat out there running for governor. And we'll see where all this goes. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. Neil Levesque, Institute of Politics, St. Anselm College, our first expert on deck. Around the corner, Michael Graham, Doug Tengden, Anna Brown, Citizens Count. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. We are back in just a few. All right, we are back. We are back, and it's interesting. We have a lot going on. We expect more candidates to be getting into the races here locally, including we're hearing this first this morning. Someone is perceived to be more of a progressive liberal activist. Um, Karishma Manzoor, PhD, will be launching her campaign on Wednesday in Manchester. She's the first Democrat to challenge fellow Democrat, U.S. Representative Chris Pappas in the first congressional district. I'm sorry, U.S. Senate race, and of course, Pappas, the first congressional district congressman, but in the U.S. Senate race. Um, and we've also told you on the show that first congressional district race is heating up. Holly Noveletsky was telling us recently in Novel Iron where she's seriously looking at running again. She was on a week or so ago. Neil Vec, Institute of Politics, St. Anselm College, tracking all the above. Neil, good morning. Are you ready for some of the marine remnants of Aaron, or the rip tides have already been strong. I guess we might get some more marine stuff going on. I- yeah, towards the end of the week, if it's the Carolinas midweek, yeah, I agree. Neil, let's get back. I was gonna say this morning. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, fine. Good one. I love that. I don't even get me going. I was out and about this weekend. I know Governor Mills was acutely concerned about this, and I love tourism. We're a tourism economy, but everywhere I went, including records being set in Maine, packed, 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 packed people. Hey Neil, I thought all the stuff happening nationally was really quelling or keeping things calm here. All the stuff happening out of DC and so forth. But you know what? We are seeing more people jumping in, and in that I was wondering if a more liberal type Democrat would challenge Chris Pappas in the U.S. Senate race. Looks like one is. Yeah, but in this environment, I don't think we really know where things are at in the Democrat Party here locally. I mean that sincerely. I think Maggie Goodlander is establishing herself in the second congressional district. I know Lily Tang Williams was on the other day talking about that Nashua real estate story with the Chinese individual on the water non Fu Spring purchase of the 23 acres in Nashua. My point is, on the Democrat side here in New Hampshire, primaries, if you look at the last few presidential races, we didn't really have one the last time, but that Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Ocasio Cortez, much more progressive, angry left liberal type energy is where the primary voters are, I think, in New Hampshire for Democrats, especially with all the stuff that President Trump is, no offense, getting done. And you just wonder in a primary, how much will this, it may make things better for Pappas in the general, but how many will this give him fits in the primary? Yep. Mhm. Mhm. Neil, you said you were surprised it took this long for more liberal, and I'm not gonna say the word progressive because I know where it comes from originally, way back in history, more progressive, but I think it's, I just the word progressive, I'd call it regressive. No, I'm kidding, I'm being sarcastic. More of a liberal challenger to Chris Pappas. You said you're surprised it took this long. Why is it taking so long for a Democrat to throw their hat in the ring to run for governor? Yeah, but you and I know that for a Democrat, even if they don't have a very strong chance in the general election of defeating Kelly Ayotte, it's a good chance to get your name out there and get known on a statewide basis. I'm just surprised you don't see a Cindy Warmington again or a state senator or a Donna Susie or someone else just running to kind of get that name out there, to, even if nothing else, to tee it up for 2 years from now or future races. Hmm. Well, you're going to need one at this to kind of that, even if they get some votes at the top of the ticket. All right, Neil, I appreciate it. Neil Levesque, St. Anselm College, Institute of Politics. Make it a good Monday. Reminder, if you want to watch now the first hour of the show every morning, YouTube, The Pulse of NH. We are streaming video as well. YouTube, The Pulse of NH. Our poll question up on X has to do with the U.S. Senate race. You think more candidates are going to jump in, both Republican and Democrat? Yes or no? Looks like a Not looks like a we're learning this morning first that a more progressive liberal Democrat is jumping in Wednesday, announcing in Manchester to challenge Chris Pappas in that primary. We'll have a lot more. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Michael Graham on deck. Next. All right, we are back. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, breaking a lot of stuff out of the gate this morning on this Monday. Michael, looks like Chris Pappas is going to have a primary challenger, at least one to contend with. Where does this where's it, she a professor? Do you know? Hmm. 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 Interesting, interesting. What about a Demo we're just talking with Neil Levesque. What about a Democrat challenging Kelly Ayotte, or at least a Democrat running for primary to run for governor? Yeah. For what? For what? Michael, I went to the Red Sox game Friday night. I had to show my license a few times to get a cold, beverage. Well, she got to be elected executive council, that's not a nothing. Well well, put your name on a ballot. Yeah. 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 Mm. You surprised that Joyce Craig is not running for governor again, but sort of not. No, let me finish. Will you calm down? What did you have a box of would you have a box of did you have a box of Wheaties this morning? Will you calm down? I'm asking. Do you do you some of these people run and they go right off the stage radar wise just to stay involved. I mean, you think of some of the past ones that really ran, got their name out there. She was the mayor of Manchester more than once. I'm not saying she was a good candidate. She was going to hopefully win the governor's race and just sort of gone. I'm just sort of saying it's interesting. Do you surprised that she's off the radar? Hmm. No, not now. Not now. But if you look at like Colin Van Ostern and others who, yeah, not right now. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Hey, let me ask you this. Neil Levesque, right? Yeah. Well, if you go back a lot longer than before you came here, and you go back even before, a Democrat couldn't even win a federal seat in New Hampshire. Then they really started. Hey, Neil Levesque was just on. He had one point on the Chris Pappas, and first I heard was you this morning that there's a progressive challenger announcing in Manchester on Wednesday to challenge Chris Pappas. He said, "Well, this will just make essentially, I don't want to paraphrase from Neil. He said, "Oh, this will just make Pappas a better general election candidate. Nothing to worry about here." But could this give? I mean, where's the grassroots energy in the Democrat Party in New Hampshire? I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I remember. I remember. But I, yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, but it's interesting you bring up Carol Shea Porter from the past in the first district. No one gave her a chance at all. But she came, grassroots campaign, and I'm looking at the primary is nothing like the general election here in federal races, nothing like it all. The primary for Democrats is going to be a whole different ball game than the general election, whoever the Republican nominee is in the U.S. Senate race. And I'm just wondering where is the real energy among Democrats who are going to get out there, work, knock on doors, t- turn out, vote. I'm not saying that Chris Pappas can be upset, but could she even come close? Mhm. Yeah, but I gotta tell you, I think that progressive energy is where the energy is. I mean, in the national if you look at New York City, if you look at California, you look at Ocasio-Cortez, you look at Bernie Sanders, the real energy is on the far, far left. All right, thank you, Michael. Thank you. Good stuff. A lot happening. Hey, we're gonna turn on the economic front, check in with Doug Tengden and see what's going on. Big meeting today at the White House. President Zelensky of Ukraine meeting with President Trump and other European leaders coming with Zelensky to talk about the summit that President Trump had Friday. Can this move forward? Right now, there's no ceasefire in place. We'll see where it goes. One thing I just want to talk about the real energy in these parties. And I asked some of the analysts last week, and it's a question that I've not heard nationally from the so called pundits, even on Sunday, who's ever watching TV anymore on the political side. Not many. But for you, I would ask this question. Even if you don't like everything or anything that Donald Trump is doing, there's no question Trump is the Republican Party and he's the Republican leader. He's the president. The Republican Party nationally and even here in New Hampshire, that's why I wonder on the Republican side in the U.S. Senate race, will President Trump want to get involved in that Senate race and get someone that he not, that he basically, gives the nod to and endorses. But my point is on the Democrat side. I've watched this. Everyone makes a big deal how Trump's head of the Republican Party, and are you with that or not? But no one nationally talks about the Democrats. Who is the leader of the Democrat Party? Who's the true leader right now? I'm talking nationally. There's no president, but who's the leader? Is it the House Speaker? Is it Chuck Schumer? They want him out, the Democrats. Is it Representative Ocasio-Cortez out of Queens, New York? Is it former President Obama? I mean, is it Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren? Who's the leader? Who's the true philosophical, you know, who's the leader of the Democrat Party? And where's the party going? Who's got the juice, if you will? And I don't know who it is, but where's the energy? Where's the energy? Is it for a moderate? I mean, we had former New Hampshire Congressman Dick Sweat on the show recently talking about elections, and I asked him if he were running today, would he run again in this environment? Such a divisive environment, even within parties. He said, Jack, this is his words, not these were his words, not mine. And I'm paraphrasing. He said, I couldn't get elected as a moderate Democrat running in New Hampshire again. Couldn't get elected, even in the second district. I couldn't get elected, he said, as a moderate because the party, he said his party's gone too far, radical, way left, way left. Well, if that's true, and that's the energy, angry or not, that's the energy. Well, does Chris Pappas, does Maggie Goodlander, does Maggie Hassan, Jean Shaheen, are they the leaders of the party in New Hampshire? Do they represent that far, far left energy that you're seeing, the Democrat Party, or are they more middle, centrist? And if that's the case in a primary, it tends to be the more zealous members, the most energetic, sort of aggressive members in a party that participate in a primary. So we'll see where it goes. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an Age. Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, on deck next. All right, welcome back. Doug Tengden on a Monday, worldmarketadvisors.com on the economy. Good morning, Doug. I'm good, thanks. Hope you had a good weekend. Well, it looks like the next few days are gorgeous. Um, Doug, it's interesting. Big day in Washington, D.C. on the international front with the Ukrainian leader and European leaders coming to the White House after the meeting between Presidents Trump and Putin Friday in Anchorage, Alaska. We'll see where it goes. But a lot of implications here. A lot. This is big stuff. We'll see where it goes, if it goes. But Thursday, live in the show, I wanted to get a reaction. We had Stephen Junot, who, like yourself, in the economic side, he's one of the top economists for Bank of America nationally, and he was on. And we're talking about where does he see this U.S. economy? And I just wanted to give you his synopsis for you to react to because there's so many things. Have tariffs really had the toll some people thought? We're seeing a busy summer tourism wise. So his basic take was things are slowing. And that's a generalization across the board, but not enough to even mention the R word. In other words, no recessionary pressures, not pressures, but things are slowing. And then he said, on the Federal Reserve interest rate side, because of the mix between inflation and what they're watching in the labor market, he wasn't as sure if we're going to see automatic rate cuts like I think we need to and should. But that was an interesting take he had. And he said he was in the minority on the latter. What are your thoughts? Right. He- One thing he said, and he agreed with me, because I said I always use my own barometers, unlike you, Doug Tangner or Stephen Junot, Doug, World Market Advisors, Stephen with Bank of America, is I tend to look at local barometers like housing, which is hard right now because nothing's affordable, everything's high, expensive. But how busy the local La Valley Middleton Building Supply, one of our sponsors, how busy they are on weekends, or the big box stores. Are people spending money? I continue to see. I said with J Dog earlier, I went down to the first Red Sox game I've been down to in years. Doug, there wasn't an empty seat on the street or the stadium till like 11:30 at night. The place was packed. Um, I see on weekends 95 South, people are still out spending that discretionary tourism dollar. The 95 South coming out of Maine into New Hampshire, Mass, is a parking lot from noon to 5 o'clock. Um, Same thing. Yeah, same thing. All you do is say, "Oh, thank goodness I'm going this way." Um, all right. So that's what I said when I was going out of Boston and growing up North Shore. I said, I'm going. God invented directions. I'm going north to college. But Doug, my question was one of the barometers I use, and he agreed with me. It's a problem on the labor front. If you hypothetically take a couple, two wage earners, a couple in New Hampshire, say one of them loses their job, and it's a high tech company. Say they're a regional something with Apple or Amazon or Google, and they lose and say that salary is mid to low six figures. So they lose that job. How quickly not can they get another job, but how quickly can they replace that salary? And he said not quickly right now. That's a problem. So if you lose a good paying job, say you're making a buck 50 a year, buck 40, and you're There's a couple of you and you're doing okay. You're in a home, and one of you loses that, say 145 a year. How quickly can you go and get that job again? And he said, right now it's tough. Oh, good line. Good line. Interesting. Right. Right. We need more homes. I know. I know. All right. We got to run. We got to run. Thank you. All right, Hurricane Aaron, they're already buckling up or battening down the hatches in North Carolina. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the pulse of an H. Heath, J Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.